All right, call to order. We're live and have been for the last 2 minutes. We just had a technical difficulty, and it's been rectified, and we were happy to wish our Director of Parks and Rec a happy birthday today. First, we're going to start off. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki and the District of Spaganagity and the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. First, I'll be looking for approval of the agenda and all subcommittees.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. I'll be looking for approval of the minutes from May 9th, 2023.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll be turning it over to the CAO for new employee introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first new employee we have with us is in the Finance Department. Tamara Marshall is here. Tamara has started with us a few weeks ago. She has most recently worked for the Chignecto Central Regional Center for Education. She's held several positions there, and we are the lucky beneficiaries of her years of knowledge and working in the same type of environment that we have here in our finance department. So we are extremely happy to have her as part of our staff, part of the team in finance, and we wish her a very long career here at East Hants.
Welcome.
And just coming in the door, Louise didn't know she was being introduced today, I don't think. So Louise Andrews started in our planning department June 12th, so she's very, very new. Louise comes to us from Halifax Regional Municipality, but she is a lifelong resident of East Hants. So we love to steal from Halifax, and we love to hire East Hants people. So welcome, Louise. And the final new employee introduction, Jesse couldn't be here today, but we have hired Jesse Beecroft. He has joined us from Kamloops, BC, relocated to Nova Scotia to take a job here with us. We're very excited to have him as part of the water wastewater team. He does have his diploma in water and wastewater technology, and he started with the team just last week. So he's out in the field today, still getting his feet underneath him, but we also wish him a long, happy, healthy career here at East Hants.
Thank you, CAO, and welcome to all the new employees, and we hope you have a long and prosperous time here with us. Thank you. Moving on. Next, we're going to go back to the CAO for a counselor benefits briefing.
There's just
sorry.
one more thing I'd like to note, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. Go ahead.
We had a position filled for a building maintenance coordinator, someone to sort of oversee all of our building maintenance functions. We have hired Bill Woodworth in that position. Bill has had a long career with the province of Nova Scotia in the similar type roles, as well as he's worked here for the last year and a half or two on as a casual building maintenance technician. So I can say that a lot of our staff have benefited from learning from Bill, and in his new role, he'll be able to continue on with that function. And he's really sort of bringing us up to that next level of building maintenance and managing all of the things that need to be managed in that function. So now.
Yeah, so thank you, CAO. And it also says there, employee recognitions are going to be done in July. My apologies to Bill, and congratulations on that appointment. So now, back to the CAO.
Just waiting for the computer here. Is it on my thing? Sorry, everybody. Tom? Oh, there we go. See, you just have to call him in it. The next report, Mr. Chairman, is information for councillors on eligibility for opening eligibility for group benefits to council members. So as you all know, there was a request for this report to come to committee. NSFM Group Benefits Plan is the plan that we participate in as an organization, and our staff have our health, dental, insurances, long-term disability, those types of things through this plan. We looked at this with the lens of what do other councils have in the NSFM Group Benefits Plan. There are 3 municipalities that provide their council members with $25,000 life insurance coverage, $25,000 accidental death and dismemberment insurance coverage, and $5,000 to $10,000 for dependent life insurance coverage. There are also 14 municipalities that provide their council members with health and dental benefits, and this is out of the 50 municipalities. And the premium rates are usually cost-shared rates, and the plan design mirrors that of the staff of the municipality that they represent. So considerations, in order to be part of this plan, councillors would have to meet the eligibility requirements, and essentially that's just you're a resident of Canada, you do have health coverage under the provincial plan, and you have to be actively at work. So in your case, that would be an active councillor. So as soon as your council term finished, your medical insurance would also finish. So the way that our plan works is anything, if you would have to have mandatory enrollment in the plan. So it would be all of you have to go in or all of you have to be out. Unless you can prove that you have alternative coverage under a different plan. So if your spouse has a plan, or if you have a plan under your regular employment, then you wouldn't have to go into our plan. But it would be, as a council, you need to decide you're either all in or you're all out. And that's the same with staff. We don't allow people to work here without coverage of some sort. So currently, the group benefits for staff are 50-50 split for costs. They're actually 65-35, but staff pay for their own LTD insurance premiums. So once you take that off, it actually works out to be dollar for dollar. It's a 50-50 split. Councillors wouldn't be eligible for long-term disability because of the nature of the work that you're being insured for. So for councillors, it would be the 50-50 split of a percentage of the premiums. There is a sort of a wait period of about 2 months, we think, maybe more, to get our computer systems configured to start taking health benefits off your payroll because you're classified in our payroll system a little bit differently. And then Blue Cross also needs a couple of months to create the new class in our plan and to put the coverages into effect. So you may get it so that those two things line up, but you're a minimum of 2 months to get this put into place once you make a decision one way or the other. So of course, adding counselors to the plan will change our demographic a little bit, so that will impact rates across the board for the entire plan. As you look at, depending on what kind of claims you folks bring to the table, you're going to shift that demographic a little bit. So I do have a table of your premium rates in here, of what it would look like for an employer cost share. And the rates are not insignificant. If you're looking at sort of a family health, you would pay $182 a month and the municipality would pay $182 a month. Adding dental to that, you're up in the 200s, and then your life insurances are usually fairly minimal. So if all council members were eligible for all noted benefits and you all selected family coverage, that's sort of that worst case scenario from a financial point of view, we'd be looking at about $29,000 annually to add that to our to your council budget. So that's sort of the order of magnitude of adding everybody to the plan. As far as funding that, if you decided to move forward this year with this, you could look at your general government other reserve. You also have general contingency for the year-end surplus, which you'll talk a little bit about later this morning. But you could take it from that as well, and next year it would impact your budget by the $29,000. So there are some options. All of this would flow through your council cost center. So right now you have your salaries being paid out of the council cost center. If you added benefits, you would look at putting those through your council cost center as well. There are some options. So you could just do life insurance for councillors. That would be about $662 annually for the municipality. As I mentioned, those are fairly small amounts. You could open eligibility to health and dental coverage only, which would be about $28,000. Open eligibility for council members to all benefits. The only one that wouldn't be extended would be the long-term disability. That would be $29,400, or you can remain ineligible for the plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my report.
Thank you, CAO. First up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, I've been sitting around the table here for 25 plus years. And over those years, I've seen a lot of folks come and go sitting on council. And I look around the room today, and I suspect that most people, if not all here, have some type of coverage. But it hasn't always been the case. And in this day and age, as we try to engage people to be interested in municipal politics and running for office in municipal politics, people do not generally, and I think I can say this safely, you don't run because you're going to get rich. But I think if we can offer benefits such as this, we open the door to folks who might not feel financially able to run otherwise, who might feel that, well, if I ran and I were to be elected, you know, I might have to leave this part-time job, or I wouldn't have benefits, or I might lose my family pharmacare benefits in some cases by earning this money, the honorarium they would get for council. So I just see in this day and age, I see the availability of particularly the health and dental benefit, the life insurance, and that is great too. I don't see it as a nice to have anymore when you're for any job. I see it as something that most folks have need of. And I understand there's cost to it, but we don't have, anyone who already is covered by any other plan can opt out. And so that costs the council member nothing, and it costs the municipality nothing. It is just an availability there for anyone who served on council who might need the coverage. And as I said, having sat here for 25 years and looking back over those years, I have seen people serve on council that would certainly have appreciated something like this. And I value the work of folks who serve on council, and I just think that this, we talk about offering wellness benefits to staff and everything, and pool memberships and things like this. So I feel that offering council members the opportunity to have medical and health benefit coverage that is very much needed in today's world is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, not surprisingly, I'm going to take the opposite stance on this. I said, I've sat around here for the same amount of time, and when we ran, we all knew that there was not a benefits. So we're all quite aware of what was before we entered that. If we weren't, then we didn't do our homework. The big thing is, I have residents out there who cannot afford life insurance for themselves. They cannot afford the extra health plans that are in there. And if, you know, I think it's really would be a slap in the face, really, to say, okay, this time, we're gonna give ourselves a perk by putting this in, and yes, half the taxpayers are gonna pay half of this. This is, you know, is the wrong time. It's the wrong thing for me. I do not support this, just because I have people out there who are struggling today to get by. They do not have the affordability to try to get life insurance. They cannot afford the rest of them. So how can I say, yes, we're gonna vote this in for myself? And that's just how I feel about that. And to say that, you know, this may encourage people to run, well, what about the people who are never run, who can't afford this? So that's how I feel, and I won't support this. Thank you.
Councillor Rhino. Next up, Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, I agree with everything Warden Rolston said, but I also agree with what Keith says as well. And we just had a raise this year in our pay. There might be some time that we should be looking at this, but I don't know if this is the right year to do it, where we just got a raise of 7% this year, and now we're looking at doing this. Now, full disclosure, I have benefits, so it might be easier for me to say that, but that is honestly the way I feel about it this year. You know, I would take into consideration the everything Councillor Rhino said there as well about the residents. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Tingley. Seeing nobody left to speak, I'm going to pass this off to the warden. I kind of agree with everybody, but I disagree with everybody as well. I think that this is something that is overdue, and as the warden pointed out, it's a barrier for some people to try and offer themselves up for municipal council, because if the time commitments might take them away from their other job, and if they miss so much time, they may lose some of the benefits there. I also think this is a good time that we initiate this now, so it can go into next year's budget cycle, because there's an election next year. And this way here, the groundwork is laid out for it. It'll be all set for the next election, and the next council coming in will have the opportunity, and the people who might want to offer for council will have the opportunity to understand what is available if you want to put yourself out there to be a council member and run an election. I would care to guess around this table, probably 80% of us have some form of medical coverage, and it's not going to cost the municipality the maximum amount in the worst case scenario. But it will open the doors. I know firsthand that the year I ran, somebody else was going to run, but they couldn't run because they were about to have a baby, and if they ran and they had to step away from their other job, they would lose their medical coverage about to have a baby. So that's a direct result of that, was that person could not put themselves forward for municipal council. So I think it's something that we should look at. I think it's something that the cost of it is going to be very nominal at the end of the day, and it is something that is overdue, especially understanding many councillors spend a lot of hours on the road driving, and if they don't have life insurance and something happens, right, that benefit there to me alone for a lot of people, I think, is worth it. Because as councillors, we put ourselves out, we travel many kilometers, we're on the roads, and as we know, the roads aren't always the safest place to be, you know, day, night, and winter. And if anything were to happen, I think the life insurance benefit to understand for our families and our loved ones that's there, for those who need it, is also something to be considered. So I'm in favor of moving forward with one of these options for the full coverage, option 3, because I think it provides the best ability for it to open the door for inclusiveness in municipal affairs. Thank you. All right. And, I guess the warden wants to speak now. Go ahead, warden.
You kind of stole my thunder. And I'm not asking anybody to identify whether they have benefits or not, but I have no problem saying, yes, I already have benefits. I'm not bringing this forward because I want to get benefits. But I do think that everyone deserves an opportunity to have benefits, and I understand that there are people out there who do not. But I don't think denying benefits to other folks, I don't think that helps anyone. And I think anyone that helps get all people the best representation that they could have is important, and this might be a very small piece of the puzzle, as the deputy warden has said. So, and, you know, a couple of months at least to set it up. We'll be into the last year of this term before it comes into effect pretty much anyway. And as the deputy warden said, then it's set up prior to the election, and the new council is not in a position to try and make this decision, because we've had this discussion before, and it never seems to be the right time, because we have this reluctance to be seen as if we're gifting ourselves something, and I don't consider this a perk. I just consider it part of living today for a business or an organization that values its people. And I'm going to say it, I value the staff here very much, and I'm glad that they have a plan, but I also value the council members and the council that sit here too, and I think they're equally important in running the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up, Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the warden, and I want to ask my fellow councilor when they vote to think about the one, if they have it, to think about the one that don't have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Musa. Councillor Rano.
Well, I guess I'm just gonna sum it up, you know. If people are running for council for benefits, then they'd never have my vote. Thank you.
All right. Seeing nobody left to speak. Warden Rolls.
I would move option 3, open eligibility for council members to all benefits, life insurance, AD&D, dependent life insurance, and health and dental coverage.
Seconded.
Moved by the Warden, seconded by Councillor Green. Any further discussion towards the motion?
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the votes are in, and it's passed by a vote of 9-2 with Councillor Tingley and Councillor Rhino voting nay. All right, next up on the agenda is Councillor Remuneration and Travel Reimbursement Policy. And I guess it's Mr. Tatry.
Morning, everybody. This item on the agenda is about the revision to council remuneration and travel reimbursement policy. I'll blow that up a bit so we can see it. So this came about at last month's council meeting, and the question whether or not we could look at the issue of raising the meal allowance for councillors to the amount allowed by Revenue Canada Agency up to $69 per day. Which would also align the council amount to the recently revised staff remuneration and travel reimbursement policy amount as well as $69 per day. So looking at last year's actual numbers in the 22-23 fiscal year, we determined that the actual expenditures on meals were slightly less than $400 for counselors for that time frame. And by increasing to this new proposed daily amount, we would be looking at approximately a little bit less than $400 in this new fiscal year, exactly $342. We feel quite comfortable that this relatively small amount can be handled well within the already existing budget for this fiscal year, either within that line item in the council cost center or within another line item, which we would just, within the council cost center, we just do a budget transfer. So we don't feel that there's any significant risk of going over budget in the council cost center because of that. We, as a little bit of a background as well, we asked for some feedback from other municipalities to see what they're doing in relation to this issue. We had feedback from several, but we also went looking at websites and other municipalities in the province. So we had information on 12 municipalities. 5 of them are actually not doing per diem meal allowances. They're actually still using the actual receipts, but asking that they're reasonable in nature in the circumstances. And 7 of the others range from $55 per day up to as high as $75 per day. You know, having looked at this, we feel that we're recommending that council do proceed and increase the meal allowances to the maximum amount of $69 per day as allowable by Canada Revenue Agency. And we also recommend that this be broken out or allocated, $18 for breakfast, $21 for lunch, and $30 for dinner. And we're also indicating that it should be effective April 1, 2023. So we do have the, you know, this is would be a change in the policy. So there's 2 motions listed in the report here, and there they are there on the screen. And I think that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Wade. Okay, council, you see the stuff before you. First up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for anyone of the public who may be listening that this is a meal allowance for when councilors are traveling on council business. We don't get this meal allowance for committee days or council days or things like that. This is strictly for when councilors are traveling generally to conferences and that on council business. So it's not used, you know, overly heavily. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Tingley.
Having recently gone to some conferences and incurred the cost for meals, our current allowance does not cover the cost. I know that, so I'd have no problem making this motion. Move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council give notice of intent to approve amendment to the council remuneration and travel reimbursement policy, Section 5, to reflect the allowance of $18 for breakfast, $21 for lunch, $30 for dinner, effective April 1st, 2023, as to the Executive Committee agenda, June 20th, 23.
Seconded by Councillor Mousseau. Any further discussion? Questions? Questions been called. Go to the vote. Votes are in. It's passed 10-1 with Councillor Rhino voting nay. So Councillor Tingley, at the council meeting of policy later today, you can make the same motion again. All right, looking back, thank you very much, Director of Finance Wade. Next, we're going to look at the year-end memo. And Janice is coming down to provide us with all the news. And Sue's going to be there to help her. Perfect. The dynamic duo. Whenever you're ready, Janice, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Am I coming through okay? Okay. So through the chair, I'd like to present the 22-23 year-end adjustments report, and once complete, I would be happy to answer any questions. Finance presents this memo every year to council, so they are aware of entries prepared for accounting purposes based on public sector accounting standards and the Provincial Financial Reporting and Accounting Manual. So below under the discussion, there's something new this year. In December, Council adopted the Special Reserves Policy, so all the transfers based on the policy have been allocated and are no longer listed in this report. For example, in previous years, legal fees, if they had savings, they would be moved to reserves and it would show up in this policy. This year, there's $89,000 in savings in legal fees, and we've already made this adjustment, but it's not in this report. Most of these items will be presented in the Treasurer's report in July. The next three items are accounting entries based on public sector accounting standards. The pension entry recorded an unamortized loss this year of $452,293. New in 22-23 is the asset retirement obligation, PSAS 3280, and this required recording a liability of $426,509, and staff are recommending to set aside $360,475 to fund this liability. The difference is the landfill liability, which already has funds set aside. Next is the sick leave triannual report. This recommended this year setting aside $27,033, which is less than budget, so a budget over expenditure is not required for 22-23 or 23-24. The Shubenacadie water deficit is now fully been recovered, so there is no more deficit for the Shubenacadie and no more additional area rate. In 22-23, the Sportsplex area rate of 4 cents had budgeted savings of $158,595. The actual came in at $158,456, which is just a small variance. Also, professional fees totaling $58,516 for the facility condition assessment was funded from the area rate reserves. The balance now remaining in this reserve is $319,062. I just wanted to mention, it's not in my report, but in June 2025, the debt refinancing for the Sportsplex debt is required for just a little less than $1.4 million. The East Hants Arena Association had an operating deficit of $115,183, and this has been recorded as a reduction to the separate operating reserve, leaving a balance of $123,266. So it's separate from the area rate reserve. Next, under salaries and benefits, there was $97,936 relating to the asset management coordinator position was transferred to reserves to fund professional fees in 23-24. As per budget discussions, $74,781 from additional building development revenue this year has been transferred to fund salaries in 23-24. Also, $160,000 from surplus has been transferred to reserves to fund the 23-24 market review. Next, I just want to apologize. In the original report that I did, I had said Uniac Business Park, and I changed it to Elmsdale Business Park when I reviewed it. So there's debt savings there. It's actually interest expense that we had budgeted that we thought we were doing a project, and the project didn't happen in 22-23. So there's $64,288 of interest that has been allocated to the related reserve. Next, there's projects to carry forward that were not completed in 22-23, and previous reports to council to be spent in 23-24 are shown in the chart below. So the first item is office equipment. So there was chairs totaling 3,120 that were actually purchased in February of 2023, but they didn't come in until May and / June. So we were asking council to move that forward for 23-24. RCMP building HVAC repairs of 9,390. Shuby Ballfield electrical repairs for 3,130. Service excellence strategy rollout for 1,500. Website development for 47,550. There was a report to council for a grant to Nova Scotia Library for 2,000. Active transportation initiatives for 300,000. Traffic calming signs as per council motion for 235,000. Traffic calming tables as per council motion for 150. Traffic lights for 100,000. Transportation for gravel, 100,000. We also have a hospital balloon payment coming up in 23-24, so we were hoping to be able to transfer 108,895 rather than refinancing, because the debt rates right now are so high. And then the RCMP cost for 23-24, we received a notification in April, and it's there's a percentage increase over budget, so we need additional 126,270. That has nothing to do with retro payments. That's the 23-24 costs. So finally, once all the adjustments have been done, the GTR, general tax rate, has a surplus of 382,165. The lights other, which is like your 9 Mile River, Enfield, Horn Settlement, Rod, and Mount Uniacke lights, is 22,452, and the urban service rate has a surplus of 999. So now, are there any questions concerning the above report?
Scanning the screen, there appears to be none. So I'll be asking council if any, Councilor Green.
I would move the recommended motion.
Moved by Councilor Green, seconded by Councilor Hebb. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Next up, we'll have the special reserve policy update.
Through the chair, I'd like to present the changes to the appendix in the special reserves policy, which has been attached to the agenda. So below, under the discussion, there have been 8 changes made as follows. The first one is addition of C015, Sustainable Services Growth. Sustainable Services Growth Fund. So we received provincial funding at March 31st of 1.1 million, and this has been set aside in reserves. The second one is the removal of G001-F, the Shubenacadie Water Utility Deficit Reserve, because this is now complete. Yay. The third one, addition of G001-G, the Well and Septic Program. Number 4, addition of G001-H, active transportation initiatives. Number 5, addition of G001-I, asset retirement obligations. Number 6, addition of G055, transportation traffic lights. Number 7, addition of G056, transportation traffic calming signs. And number 8, addition of G057, transportation traffic calming tables. So now, if there are any questions concerning the above changes, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anyone on council have any questions or like to address any of the changes? Councilor Green.
I would move the recommended motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the votes are in, and it's passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda, African Nova Scotia Land Acknowledgement, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report in front of you today, committee, is as a result of a council motion to direct staff to investigate a second land acknowledgement regarding African Nova Scotian history and what other municipalities do for this type of land acknowledgement. So my staff looked into different options that are available that folks do. We do have in the report a list of municipalities and what they do at their meetings, typically their council, committee, or any public gatherings. So Halifax Regional Municipality, their policy states they do an Indigenous acknowledgement. There's 4 municipalities that do the Indigenous acknowledgement alone. We would be as well part of that. The United Way, NSFM, Acadia University, Town of Amherst, AMANS, and Annapolis County, AMANS, do both acknowledgements, and Annapolis County does not have an African heritage acknowledgement. So we have looked at, if you look at your report, there is a bunch of different samples there that are attached to the agenda. I can't actually go back out and pull them up for you, but there are different wordings that people use. Some of them are very long, some of them are short, some of them are tied in with their Indigenous acknowledgement, some of them are separate. So there really is no standard format if you chose to go this route. So this report doesn't provide a recommendation one way or the other, but if you choose to do an African Nova Scotian acknowledgement, there is some wording that is in the report, but again, it can be whatever council wishes.
Thank you, CAO. First up to speak, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this acknowledgement is long overdue. When looking through the report, I had to chuckle when I saw Annapolis County, who had at least 8 African communities in the county that didn't have an acknowledgement. And Inglewood, where I grew up, the largest of the group, I thought that they would have taken that as a sign that we had contributed to the growth of the province, not just athletically, but also academically. And if history lets you know that of all the black communities in Nova Scotia, Inglewood had the highest percentage of graduates from grade 12. Those are my comments, and I thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anybody else wanting to speak? Councillor Rhino.
Well, I've thought about this for quite a while. And I've been brought up to treat everybody equal, and I believe in it. Everybody's the same. So how do we treat the Europeans, the English, the Scottish, the Irish, anyone else? How do we treat them by acknowledging their contributions to the province in this as well? You know, to single out one group for, I'm all inclusive. Let's come up with something that includes everyone, not just one group. Because I do believe everybody's treated the same, and by singling out one, you're not treating, in my mind, treating everyone the same. Well, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mitchell.
I appreciate Councillor Rhino's comments, and I think everybody should be treated equally, but I'll move the suggested motion as presented.
Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion towards the motion? Warden Rolston.
Yes, speaking in support of the motion, and I understand completely what Councillor Rhino is saying, but I guess what it came down to for me is that historically, this particular community historically was not treated equally. And this, in my mind, is a way to acknowledge that and acknowledge that, the contributions of the African Nova Scotian community. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Counselor Rhino.
Yes, reluctantly, I cannot support this motion because it doesn't include everyone that has contributed to this province in a way that it's all inclusive. And I wanted to make this perfectly clear.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else left to speak? Question's been called on the motion. We'll go to the vote. Votes are in. It's passed with Counselor Rhino voting nay. All right, we've now reached, the time is now, don't jinx it, don't jinx it. All right. We're gonna jump ahead, and at 10:20, we will take our scheduled break, but right now, we're gonna have the Allen Shaw Boulevard and Lance.
Perhaps we could jump to the Gospridge Safety Labs? Oh, no, that's different.
That's a different committee.
We just don't have people here yet.
Oh, we don't have the people here yet? Okay, then we'll take our break now, where we need to get the people in for the remaining presentations. So it's now 9:54. We'll return in 15 minutes at 10:10. Shaw Boulevard, Lance deed turned back to the province. Go ahead, Amy.
There we go. Slow and steady on a Tuesday morning, and it's not letting me go. All right, thank you. Through the chair. So this should be short and sweet. It's a housekeeping report. When Allenshaw Boulevard was constructed by Clayton Developments, they transferred the entire parcel to East Hants, when in reality, the first section coming off the connector road should have been transferred to the province due to its proximity to the Lance interchange. So this was recently highlighted by the province, and Clayton has prepared the deed to transfer parcel, what is known as AS1B, which is that small section of Allenshaw, to the province. Municipal authorization is now required. The MGA does permit this transfer, and our CAO authority policy does authorize the CAO to execute deeds once council approves the acquisition or disposal. But because this parcel was never actually intended to be in municipal ownership, there is no pre-existing approval. So council motion to authorize the CAO to execute the deed is required. So I'll just bring the motion on the screen here for you, which again, short and sweet. So it's just to declare parcel AS1B surplus and authorize the CAO to execute a deed conveying it to the province. So I'll turn it back to you, Chair, and I'll note that our development officer is here if there's any questions specific to that subdivision, plan of subdivision. So thank you.
Thank you for your report. First up to speak, Councillor Garden Cole.
I'll move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council deem parcel AS-1B surplus and authorize the CAO to execute a deed conveying parcel AS-1B Allenshaw Boulevard to the province.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Seeing none, question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you. Next up, the General Government Grants Policy. Nathan and Joe.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, today staff are presenting a draft version of the General Government Grants Policy. This policy is being reviewed as part of Council's policy review program. So the General Government Grant Policy outlines 4 different types of grants the municipality can give out to organizations. These are use of municipally owned facilities, school bursaries, grants to nonprofits, and grants to community organizations. The purpose of this program is really to foster strong community within East Hants. Grants typically don't exceed $2,000 for financial ones, but they can on occasion. And then recipients of these grants are either regular receivers each year, such as the Christmas Food Bank program, the Hants County, and the Remembering Canada's Heroes, or their one-off sort of applications like the Hants County Exhibition Trophies. So to conduct this review, staff met with the Senior Grant Review Committee, the CAO, as well as the Community Development Coordinator. There are no substantial updates being proposed as part of this policy review. There have been some minor changes. The first is inserting reference to the municipality strategic plan in sections 1.1.4 and sections 3.1.5. This just gives council some flexibility and some guidance just to make sure programs align with the strategic plan. Additionally, section 4.1 has been simplified. The application section just applications will be processed in the order that they're received. It's functionally the same requirements as before, but just simplifies the language. There is a recommended motion for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Joe is also here to support, and back to the chair.
Thank you, Nathan. Looking to council for their input. Councillor Mitchell.
I'll move the recommendation. Move that Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends to council give notice of intent to approve the general government grant policies amendments as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated June 20th today, 2023.
Thank you so much. Moved by Councilor Mitchell, seconded by Councilor Green. Is there any further discussion on this topic? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. Votes are in and it's passed unanimously. Next up, the Community Partnership Fund. Back to you, Nathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Community Partnership Fund policy is also being updated as part of Council's policy review program. The CPF policy really sort of provides funding to larger organizations that provide substantial programming sort of outside the municipality's current in-house offerings. So examples of this are CCOA, East Hants Youth Links, the Sports Heritage Society, so things sort of out of what the municipality does in-house. These programs or services must be accessible to everyone in the municipality to be eligible for funding. To conduct this review, council or staff met with the Senior Grant Review Committee, Community Development Coordinator, and CAO for their input. The draft version of the policy that is attached for your review looks substantially different from the current version of the policy. However, these are primarily cosmetic changes. The old version of the policy was sort of an out-of-date template, not really current municipal practices and how we write policy. So things are significantly rejigged, but the content itself remains the same. In the track changes version for your review, the cosmetic changes haven't been captured because it would have been a nightmare to look at. So it's only really just small language updates that have been captured within the track changes, and that's the only other major changes, just sort of clarifications and small amendments here and there. There is a draft motion for your consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as well as Joe. Thank you. Back to the chair.
Thank you, Nathan. Looking for council to make, what are your wishes? Councilor Musa.
I move the recommended motion.
Moved by Councilor Musa, seconded by Councilor Mitchell. See no further discussion. Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And it's passed unanimously. Thank you, Nathan. Always good to have policies updated and current. Brings me to the end of corporate residential services. Be looking for a motion to adjourn into Infrastructure and Operations Committee. Moved by Councilor Green. Seconded by Councilor Hebb. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
Okay, I'd like to call the Infrastructure and Operations meeting to order. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of May 9th, 2023. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the motion has passed. Our first and only item on the agenda today is the Goss Bridge Safety Streetlight issue, and Jesse, you're taking that?
Perfect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report is in follow-up to a motion originally approved late 2021 regarding a safety light near Goss Bridge. The original motion was passed to add a light. Upon further review of the location, there wasn't adequate wiring for the light connection, and so staff went back and sought out costs from Nova Scotia Power. There was significant time lapse in acquiring that information. We have that now, and there's an additional cost. So based on the principles of the policy, where it was beyond a normal installation of a streetlight, staff are bringing this back to validate with executive to just do that check on cost and expenditure before proceeding. So the total cost for the individual light will end up to be approximately $4,400. There might be some variation on that cost, and that's in the recommended motion. This is outside of the serviced area, so it will hit the general tax rate, hence the beyond due diligence on this item. And the recommendation is as posted.
Thank you, Jesse. We'll just have some discussion. Councillor Rhino.
Oops.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Structure and Operations Committee recommend the council approve the estimated $4,378 plus tax for the installation of a safety light near the Goss Bridge in South Macon to be funded from the Transportation Roads Contracts Reserve.
Okay, just on before the motion, Councillor Mitchell.
I think safety is always an important concern, and I'll support the motion going forward, and I'll second the motion.
Moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion. Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. Oh. Sorry, Councillor Head, go ahead.
No, not a problem, Madam Chair. Through you to Jesse, I'm assuming that's at the intersection of the 215 and the Goss Bridge there, yeah. Is there any historical records of how many accidents have been there? I'm not aware of any there, but I'm sure there have been, I don't know.
Through Madam Chair, the accident data wasn't pulled for this particular site, but at the same time, staff don't believe that it's a bad idea based on the curvature. So if you're going northbound approaching the intersection, you come down a hill, so it from a treed area and a change of environment, and it is a major intersection for that community. So it's not unwarranted from a staff perspective, but we didn't, based on what we felt was this makes sense decision from a location, we didn't go into the detail of pulling traffic accident counts or data on that particular location.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I know intersections are an important thing, but, you know, this is gonna cost us over $5,000 for one street light. To me, that's quite an exorbitant price, and you know, if there was a history of a lot of accidents there, I would understand that, but to me, that's an awful price to pay for one street light, and I don't think that the general tax rate should cover that, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Councillor Rhino.
Well, I can address Councillor Hibbs' concerns. There has been, in the past, accidents there, a number of accidents that our fire department has responded to, and one pretty near went into the river there. It's a very dark intersection. It has a benefit for anybody that uses that road. It also acts as a through the tourism. There's a lot of tourism traffic that gets down through, trying to move there late at night. It's a dark, dismal intersection, and I hope that everyone will support it. Thank you.
Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having heard Mr. Rhino's report there, I wonder if it wouldn't be more appropriate to put a flashing light there, a red flashing light that they have at other intersections. Like I know the Cheese Factory Corner up there is certainly a warning light there. That might be more appropriate for something like that rather than the street light.
Through Madam Chair, I would comment on that. For any signalization or activated warnings, where these are provincial roads, we would have to put in a request to the province for that level of advocacy or endorsement, because we wouldn't be able to install that ourselves as the municipality.
Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor and no one else to speak, so we'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed unanimously. And that's the only item in infrastructure and operations. Due to the time, we're ahead of schedule. We are going to move on to Parks and Rec. That brings us to the end of infrastructure and operations. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned. Get my shoes on.
Parks and Rec, Keith.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee to order. First order of business is approval of minutes of May 9th, 2023. What is your wish? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary of mind, motion's carried. Next order of business, Shubenacadie Ball Field softball agreement. And Mr. McDougall, you will be taking that one?
Through you, Mr. Chair, municipal staff are directed by council motion C-22-396 to bring any management agreements relating to the Shuby Ball Field back to council before executing the agreement. East Hands Minor Softball Association has requested to use the baseball field or ball fields for practice and games for the remainder of the 2023 season. East Hands Minor Softball has historically used that field. They have about 150 members, or players, and a strong volunteer base of coaches, managers, and people that help out with some of the fields that they use throughout the community. There is some other groups that historically have used that field for different things, including the Freedom Day March, Heydays. There's a few ball tournaments that are operated out of Spaganagity or Spaganagity band members. Our proposal is that we address those in the agreement for this year, holding those dates for this year so those historic events can continue. The Softball Association would have control of the field on the, other than those days. Then at the end of the 2023 season, we would look at the issues that arose and how we could address them in future agreements. For this year, we would mow the field. The softball association would look after the lining and the dragging of the infield. So it'd kind of be a hybrid of what happens around the most of the municipality right now. I think that's pretty much everything. I'm sure there'll be a few questions. The recommendation is that council give the CEO direction to enter into a uses agreement with East Hanson Minor Softball for the use of the ball field at the Shuby River Park.
You've heard the report. What is your wishes? First up to speak, Councillor Norval Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you, Justice Starr. Would the agreement cover liability on the user's end or the municipality's end?
They would have their liability and we'd have our liability. So ultimately, if something happened, they would be the first to get, would say, sued. But ultimately, we are still on the hook. We're the big easy target. So eventually, they'd come to us if their insurance was maxed out, we'll say.
So we'd be on the hook because of the owner?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But they're the first insurance would be, it would only be after their insurance is maxed out. So
Is there a dollar value they'd have to have in insurance?
I think it's 2 million we put on that.
Okay, thank you.
Is that all, Councillor? Thank you. Next up, Councillor Wayne Green.
I would move the recommended motion.
Moved by Councillor Green, second by Councillor Hibb. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing nobody want else to speak and the question has been called, we'll go to the vote. Are we short one? Somebody hasn't voted there. Oh, so you record Councillor Perry is out of the room, so the vote is passed unanimously. Next up would be District Recreation Funds, second intake. Ms. Giles, you'll be taking that one?
Thank you. Through the chair. This is the second intake of the District Recreation Fund applications from the April deadline. 5 applications were received and requested funds totaled $44,330. And all these applications were evaluated against the District Recreation Fund policy. So total funds for 23-24 were $733,020, which included the Gore, Mount Uniacke area rates, and the Shubenacadie Community Fund. And there was 4 applications approved by council in March, which totaled $70,401.
Could we have that show on the screen, please? Oh, is it? Okay, excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
I was looking for a thing, excuse me.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll bring up the chart in a second here. So the balance after March's applications is $662,619. So the 5 applications being recommended are against policy is $42,729. And if approved, both intakes will total $113,130. So just a reminder that the policy that this was evaluated on and recommended was that organizations are first eligible for 50% of costs And if the district's fund does not have ample funding to meet that the organization may receive up to 50% of district available funds. But council also may contribute more than the 50%. So there's the balance. So the last column is what is left in each district remaining for the upcoming applications. So I'll go over the project descriptions first, and then we'll go into discussion. So first I'll start with District 3, Milford Nymall River. We had 2 applications from this district, Lions Memorial Park Society. This is their second phase of their seasonal washroom. Last year they did prep work for this. They're requesting $5,750, and we are recommending that the third that they're asking. The province has also gotten a application from them for this project, and I did talk to them, and it looks like it's going to go ahead. And also District 1 in the past has also contributed to this project. The second one is Milford Recreation Association. They're looking at putting exterior hall siding, so they had some work done for water issues, and they're looking at covering up the lower part where there's plywood. And they're also looking to put some picnic tables and benches around the property. So they're asking, so their total project cost is $19,800, and they're asking 50%, which is $9,900. We're recommending $8,973, which is 50% of the district allocation. So that gives them a shortfall of $927. And also in the past, District 2 and 7 have also contributed to Milford Rec's projects. So next, District 10, we had 1 application. E.H. Horn School Preservation Society, they're looking at continuing flooring and more areas of the building and painting interior hallways and exterior wooden areas like trim and so they're requested, their total project is $13,949, and they're requesting 50%, which is $6,975. DRF is recommending $6,301, which is 50% of the district allocation, which gives them a shortfall of $674. And in past applications, District 1 has also contributed. District 11, we've had 2 applications come from this area. East Gore Community Club, they're looking to replace the roof. Their total project cost is $12,293. And they're requesting $6,147, which we are recommending which is 50% of the project expenses. And this qualifies for the Gore 1 cent Rod and Gore funds. Empire Trails Association. This group was a private business that transitioned into a not-for-profit, and they're operating under a lease agreement. Just a little bit about this, as they're a new group that's not-for-profit that's mainly used for biking, but they are expanding to offering opportunities for walking. They do charge to use their trails, which is $8 a day or $60 a year. And their total project cost is $31,117 for bridge replacements. They're asking for 50% of project costs, which we've recommended as per policy. And just to note, their in-kind is 46% of project costs. So here's a summary based on recommendations for policy. So I guess we can have discussion now on what council wants to do with each project.
All right, thank you for the report. I'll open the floor for discussion. First up, Councillor Garden-Cole, Senator Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So my first question is, in regards to the first intake for the Lions Memorial Pickleball Project, is that on hold?
Oh, the Enfield?
Yes.
It is until they have funding, but they have a year to come up with their funding as per DRF policy.
Okay, so the funding is just held until they can, because I know I had spoken with them and they were, things were not coming along as they had hoped. Okay, so for the E.H. Horn Preservation Society, they have a shortfall of $674, which District 1 will cover. Can I cover more than that, more than the 50%? So I'll cover $2,674.
Anything further?
Oh, sorry. That's it for me. Thank you.
So you have that?
Yep.
Okay. Next up, Warden Ralston.
Thank you. Had some conversation with Councillor Hebb earlier today about the famous Gore 1 cent rate, which has been sitting around for quite a number of years now because there are only certain projects that qualify for that rate. And in conversation, we thought perhaps it should be used for the benefit of the area that collected it as opposed to just it's sitting there. So as a result of that, for the East Gore Community Hall roof project, and I believe I understand right, Councillor Hebb would fund the remaining amount of the Gore 1 cent rate that is in his district, correct, Councillor Hebb? Which was $8,351. And I would cover, I believe the amount is $3,942 from my Gore 1 cent rate, which would cover the total project. And then the remainder of my Gore 1 cent amount, which I believe is $3,058, would go to the Empire Trails project, with the remainder of their ask coming out of the regular district rec funds. That's okay? Because that does qualify for the Gore 1 cent as well.
And that remainder, through you, Madam Warden, that remainder would be $12,500 coming from your district, 11 funds.
Okay.
So, all Warden.
That's it, thank you.
Next up, Councillor Tingley.
Chair, for Milford Recreation Association, District 7 would like to make up the shortfall there of $927. And can we add more to that as well? So I'll add $2,500 to that as well.
Anything further, Councillor Tingley?
That's it.
Thank you. Next up, Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Can I make an adjustment to the amount that I pledged for the E.H. Horn School Preservation Society in order to pay the remaining amount of that bill? If District 10 is paying $63.01, then District 1 will pay the remainder.
Do we have that staff? Anything further, Councillor Garden Cole?
That's everything, thank you.
Being no one left to speak? Oh, CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just for clarity, Councillor Garden Cole, that was the remainder being the
remainder of the total bill.
the total, so you want it 100% funded?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Norval Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through your staff. What's the remainder on the Milford Rec Association side?
Through the warden, I believe through District 7, Councillor Tingley contributed $34.27, so the remainder would be $64.73.
54?
$64.73.
District 2 will cover that at the present?
Anything further, Councillor Mitchell?
No, does that cover the project?
Yes, yep.
That's all, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Good. Next up, I guess I've seen nobody, the presenter, would you want to, Corinne, would you like to speak?
Did we want to put out the totals to them?
To date, as of right now, yeah, we could. The only one through the warden,
So
the only
here's
one we
the
haven't
motion.
discussed is Lions, or did I miss that?
The Lions, yeah.
Yeah.
Memorial Park. If we're all good with that.
Okay. Councillor, next up, Councillor Hibb.
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank Councillor Tingley and Councillor Mitchell for stepping up and helping Milford Rec. It's in my district. Appreciate it very much, and I'm sure the people will too. Thank you.
Seeing nothing, nothing further to speak, what is your wish? There's no motion. Warden?
I just wonder if, and if not, so if staff could read the
I can.
revised
Certainly.
amounts.
Which one of you be taking out?
Alana.
It's my birthday. Okay, perfect. Through the warden, so what we have for Lions Memorial Park, they've requested, or as per policy, we've recommended $57.50. And as per policy, that would come from District 3, $57.50. Milford Rec, we have District 7 contributing $3,427, and we have District 2 contributing $6,473. For E.H. Horn, flooring and painting, we have District 1 contributing $674, and District 10 contributing $6,301. East Gore Community Club, we have District 11, the Rod and Gore 1 cent rate contributing $3,942. District 3, Milford 9 Mile River Gore 1 cent rate contributing $8,351. Empire Trails, District 11, Rod and Gore 1 cent rate contributing $3,058, and then the remaining funds of $12,500 coming from the regular District 11 funds. And what we can do as well in advance of next week, staff will put this in written format and we'll send it to the individual district counselors that have contributed just for written clarification as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Sandergaard Cole.
Thank you. I probably didn't clarify properly, but I want to cover the entire amount. So not just the 674, but approximately $7,650.
$13,940.
Recorded there. Good.
Through the warden, the revised amount for the E.H. Horn would then be District 1 contributing $7,648 and District 10 contributing $6,301. Perfect.
Good. Warden Rolston.
And I just may have misheard, but I just, because it's read into the record, the second one, the Milford Rec Association, I'm not sure I heard, I think there were 3 districts contributing to that, and I thought I only heard 2 of them listed. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
there's,
Yeah.
So I don't have the District 3 notes.
District 3 is $8,973.
That all, Warden?
Yeah, I just, clarification, I thought.
Through the warden, so for the Milford Rec, it would be District 7 contributing $3,427, District 2 contributing $6,473, and District 3 contributing $89.73.
Does that meet everybody's needs? Thank you. Seeing nobody left to speak, what is your wish? Councillor Deputy Warden Michael Perry.
I'll move the recommended motion with the revised numbers as presented by the Parks and Rec staff.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor Green. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? Seeing nobody left to speak and the question being called, we'll go to the vote. And the vote is in, passed unanimously. So the next order of business would be the East Hants Aquatic Center Program registration. Mr. Preston, you'll be taking that one?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Good to proceed?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is in regards to aquatic program registration at the East Hants Aquatic Center. So following some of the seasonal program registrations, some East Hants residents have indicated issues with enrolling into aquatic programs at the East Hants Aquatic Center. So we've had some comments that residents feel that there should be a priority registration in place for East Hants residents, as well as some others that feel that a facility membership holder should have priority registration as well. So staff have brought forward this report with some analysis on priority registration models, and also with some data on the percentage of East Hants residents in aquatics programs versus those outside the municipality. So just some background, East Hants Aquatic Center opened during COVID-19 restrictions, and the first aquatic program registration was a total of 500 participants in the fall of 2020. This was limited due to pandemic restrictions as well as size of staff due to disrupted leadership courses that took place during COVID-19. Despite these challenges, staff worked diligently to get more swim instructors trained doing rapid leadership courses and grew the participation numbers about 300 per year. You can see the table here represents the spring registration data, which is typically the highest registration that the Aquatic Center sees. And you can see that increasing about 300 per year to this past spring at 1,200 registrations. Staff reviewed client accounts based on the historical data of aquatics registration at the Aquatic Center. And it appears that the data shows that between residents and non-residents, it's about 50% split, with this past spring registration being slightly higher for non-East Hants residents. Staff used this manual calculation based on looking at people's registration address and associating that as being either a resident or non-resident. Staff also conducted a jurisdictional scan of aquatic facilities in Nova Scotia to best understand how these facilities compare to the East Hants Aquatic Center in terms of total registration and also the staffing complement. As you can see here, the East Hants Aquatic Center plays a big role in registration. There's a very good comparison between the East Hants Aquatic Center and the Cadden Game Center and the Zatzman Sportsplex, which are some of the larger facilities you see in Halifax. Most of these facilities that were identified were operated by nonprofit organizations versus municipalities. These facilities offer a discount as well as priority registration for members. The East Hants Aquatic Center doesn't follow this model and does not basically privilege those who can pay for the membership to have early registration or discounts. The Sackville Sports Stadium was the only other facility that was identified that didn't have the membership priority model. And it's important to note that the Sackville Sports Stadium was the only other facility identified that wasn't operated by a municipality. They were operated by a municipality. They're operated by HRM, Halifax Regional Municipality, and not a nonprofit board. Staff then conducted a scan across Canada for municipalities or towns that do have a priority registration in place for residents. Some of the towns and municipalities that were identified here, you can see some big differences obviously in population in size, some of these being outside of major cities like Toronto. However, what these municipalities and towns shared in common is that they were all outside a larger city compared to their own. One that was more common with East Hants, not geographically, but population size, would be Mount Pearl, with St. John's in Newfoundland being the neighboring municipality. So Mount Pearl offers a priority registration for their swim lessons at their pool. So this data captured basically demonstrates that the East Hants Aquatic Center is operating with very high enrollment due to the catchment area that is attracting both residents and non-residents of East Hants. The enrollment of the Aquatic Center is exceeding the expectations that were originally set before the construction of the facility. In 2015, a feasibility study and business case were developed for the construction of the East Hants Aquatic Center. In this document, it noted that the catchment area for a East Hants Aquatic Center located in the corridor area of East Hants would serve a population outside of the East Hants municipal boundary. This was a critical element for the municipality to receive the federal funding of $5.8 million. As I mentioned earlier, the current registration is exceeding targets at the East Hants Aquatic Center. Originally, the expected registration was going to be approximately 2,000 in the first year. With now our first year without COVID-19 restrictions, staff are expecting about 3,500. The East Hants Aquatic Center is a smaller aquatic center compared to some of the comparators in the jurisdictional scan. I'll compare again the Canada Game Center that had a similar registration this past spring of 1,250 registrations. It's important to note that the Canada Game Center also has a staffing complement of 140 staff, an 8-lane competition pool, and a 25-meter leisure pool. This is much bigger than the East Hants Aquatic Center. These facilities are also located in areas of higher population density and have post-secondary education nearby, which means that they have staff who are not in high school. The East Hants Aquatic Center is a much smaller staffing unit and is composed of about 90% high school students, which means a constant turnover every year when staff graduate and move on. So here I'm going to explain some of the risks and for consideration for council on priority registration models. First of all, the Perfect Mind recreation software, which is what East Hants uses as a software system for our recreation, has some capabilities to identify different client accounts with a resident status. Some of the advantages of this is that Perfect Mind would populate all the client accounts in the current database with a resident status that are in a East Hants boundary. They do this using the GIS mapping software that we have for East Hants and would match that with the data in Perfect Mind. So that way, as clients sign up, their address will be automatically validated as a resident or non-resident. Some of the disadvantages or risks that we wanted to make note here is that this system is not without its issues. Fake addresses could be used, that being that the address is in East Hants but isn't actually the person's address. So someone could input 15 Commerce Court here in Elmsdale, and that would populate and recognize that that is an East Hants address. The system also doesn't prevent multiple addresses for different accounts, so people could share addresses or use someone else's address without that being validated. The recreation software also won't recognize if an address is spelt incorrectly. So if Elmsdale was spelt incorrectly, it wouldn't validate that as a resident address. There would also be no way to track if people moved out of East Hants unless they updated their address on their own. Staff have identified that there would be approximately 2 to 3 hours of customer service time per week that would need to be added to just review new addresses. Sometimes getting up to registration, we have 100 new accounts getting created. It slows down in other weeks, but there would have to be validation. Staff could also implement a validation by residency status in person. So some of the other impacts and risks for council to consider are the impact of residents with other municipalities. If East Hants were to move towards a priority registration model for residents, it could push other municipalities to follow suit. Many residents rely and use services in other municipalities like HRM, West Hants, and Colchester. And council must consider the risk that if other municipalities do follow suit, this could impact the East Hants residents who use those services. Thirdly is the impact to non-residents as well. Moving to a resident priority model could have negative effects on some of the non-residents who use the Aquatic Center and other services in East Hants. There are many people that live approximately 5 to 10 kilometers from the center who shop and support East Hants. It's possible that a priority registration model for residents could create negative feelings from residents who are on the border of our municipality that use our services and could affect how they support East Hants. This could also affect the enrollment at the East Hants Aquatic Center if they choose to no longer enroll in the programs. Lastly, I'll speak on just the priority registration for members of some risks that we've identified, and I spoke above, but this is a common approach for nonprofit organizations that have a membership model as it drives membership sales to have priority registration for members. It's an extra value to the membership. East Hants didn't move with that model because it wouldn't be fair to privilege members who can pay the fee for a membership to have priority registration or a discount in place. This is the same approach that the Sackville Sports Stadium follows, and they're a municipally operated facility. And this is a common approach for municipally operated facilities to not create that inequity. That way you can be fair to all the residents. So the overall risk assessment here is there is advantages and disadvantages to different priority registration models. As I mentioned, from a membership perspective, it can drive more revenue and membership sales. However, there's challenges with that. From a resident priority perspective, it can help ensure that residents will get into programs before non-residents. However, both these models contain several risks that could be detrimental to the municipality. Having a regional aquatic facility like the East Hants Aquatic Center supports the strategic plan by providing services, programs, and facilities through direct service delivery and collaboration with others that allow people and businesses to thrive. So the recommendation that staff have put forward today is that Parks, Recreation, Culture Committee recommends that council maintains the current registration model for aquatics and recreation programs that does not prioritize registration for members of East Hants Aquatic Center or residents of East Hants. Alternatively, scroll down here, council may choose to recommend to council that council directs staff to come back with options outlining a priority registration model or to provide alternate direction to staff. So that concludes my presentation on the report. I'm sure there'll be questions. I'll put the recommendation here.
Thank you for the report. And just before we move on, could you inform everyone how many were turned away during that registration process? So everyone has the same information.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess turned away is an interesting term. So in the past spring registration, we had 300 or so on the wait list, and staff worked diligently to reduce that number by about half. So it's hard to say how many are absolutely turned away, but we worked through about half of that 300 wait list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Everyone has the full information. The first up, Councillor Sandra Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So I have had so many complaints about this through email, through phone calls, through the grocery store, through everywhere. It's from parents, it's from grandparents. I think for us to leave our registration status quo would be not properly addressing the concerns that people have. I feel like we have to come up with a solution here. The idea of possibly having members prioritized, I don't think that's an option at all. As you stated, that's just discriminating against people who can't afford to be a member. Scrounging up money for registration possibly 3 times a year for one or multiple kids is enough of an expense for people. you know, I think that anybody who isn't a resident of East Hants could, you know, if they were being reasonable, could understand if we had a prioritized system for residents of East Hants who are paying for this unbelievably expensive facility. You know, even if it was a 6 or an 8 hour window. Not that, you know, just give people an opportunity to get in there and register their kids. The fact that it might hinder or, you know, make people maybe not want to use our facility because the own residents are going to get a window to get prioritized. I don't think that's, I think that's unrealistic. I think we're probably in a possibly a unique situation here in that our, you know, people wanting to register is so unbelievably high. Have you looked into that? Who is in this situation? That, you know, that they just absolutely can't accommodate and that over half their members are not tax-paying citizens in the municipality where the facility is?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you can just clarify the question, just
Well,
so
the
I...
question is that I feel like we are in a unique situation here with this facility that registrants are, you know, that there's so many people who want to register and are unable to. I'm just wondering if, you know, if other facilities are experiencing this.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Other facilities are experiencing high volumes of registration as well. In speaking with the Canada Game Centre, they actually stopped doing waiting lists because due to staffing complement and size, they weren't able to accommodate any more than what they have at around the 1250 mark.
Yeah.
So hearing from those in the Halifax area, I think it is. I think we're moving out of that. We are kind of the last of that. Looking at the Rath Center, I mean, they did significantly less than us at about you know, close to 300 just for the session, which is less than a quarter of ours. But I'd say in that central Halifax, those facilities are experiencing the same.
Yeah, and especially a facility like that where people would rather go there than go to some of the lesser facilities that are around them, right? And probably the case why they are wanting to come here as well. I mean, from my standpoint, I really feel like I would be doing a disservice to my residents if I didn't support the direction of having our residents get the opportunity to register their kids. As I say, for a 6 or an 8 hour window or just something, and then opening it up to everybody. That's just I'll see what the other councillors have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, Deputy Warden Michael Perry.
Thank you, Chair. I am 100% not in favor of offering prioritized registration for East Hants residents. My district sends people to 3 and 4 different facilities in other municipalities. This facility is funded by the entire municipality, and there are large areas of the municipality that their option for recreation is outside of our municipality. And if we start setting a precedent that, you know, in this area, you'll get prioritization, and the other areas that don't come here because logistically it makes no sense. It makes no sense for my residents in part of Lakelands and Mount Uniacke to come here to the East Hants pool when Windsor is so much closer. A lot of the seniors don't want to come this far. They go to Sackville because it's so much closer. And if all of a sudden this model goes the other way, they're paying for the pool here, and then they could possibly face the same thing where they will no longer be able to access programs in their area. This is a municipal asset for the municipality. Everybody pays for it. It was said when it was being constructed and in the business model that it was expected to draw from outside. Look at Enfield. Half of Enfield is an HRM. They are way closer than the majority of the rest of the municipality to this facility than anywhere else. And to tell those residents who do a lot of shopping here and do a lot of business in East Hants, sorry, you're on the wrong side of the road. You have to wait. I just don't think is fair. I understand it's difficult. I myself have tried to register my children for programs here and in other facilities and have been unsuccessful because you know, the clock comes on, you register, and you are successful or unsuccessful, and that's just unfortunate. But if this council moves towards prioritizing registration for the Aquatic Center, be rest assured, I will be looking for a motion to detach general tax rate funding for that facility, because it will no longer be for everybody, because it will then become a centralized asset for certain communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Next up, Councillor Walter Tingley.
Through the chair, I've got a question for staff as well. Is there anything can be done to increase our capacity to be able to take on some of these people that are on the wait list?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So staff, as I noted in the report, have been working diligently to continue to train as many staff as we can to accommodate. So there's really two things in aquatics for us to increase registration is really space and staff. We feel that where we're approaching at about the 1,200 mark per season is starting to be the peak. So we do want council to know that I'm not sure, and staff aren't sure, that 1,500 will be a norm here that we'll see. We might have peaked at 1,200 with the staff and complement that we can maintain with high school students each year. But we will continue to work diligently, and our staff are. We've reduced, council in the budget last year reduced the cost of leadership courses. That's helped a lot this year. Doing $50 a course now and getting some of those numbers up. So it is possible. I just can't say for certain, but it would be increasing staffing size.
Well, I'd like to see us try to open up as much capacity as we can, which I'm sure staff is. But I have to agree with Councillor Perry. I would be a little concerned about having a priority where this facility was built with $5.8 million worth of provincial funding, federal funding. Was it federal? Yeah. No provincial, federal funding. And
That's a bone of contention.
But anyways, that was on the basis of communities outside of East Hants would be able to use it, and we do use facilities in HRM and surrounding municipalities, and I'd be concerned about the pushback from some of the other municipalities as well. But if we don't go with prioritization, we're going to have to get some good messaging to the residents to explain why, because like Councillor Garden-Cole stated, I've had a few calls, not a lot, but I've had a few calls about this as well. And, people just look at it as being on their tax. And, why is somebody from another municipality getting in there and not them? So if we do not prioritize it, we need to get some good messaging out there. That's it.
But all, thank you, Councillor Tingley. Next up, Councillor Sandra Garden-Cole.
Oh.
Well, okay, hearing nothing. Oh, okay, now we're coming on board. Warden Rolston.
Yes, and it's easy to understand how the people who can't get into swimming lessons are feeling. But I do have to agree with the deputy warden on this one, that there are so many services that many of our residents access outside the political boundaries of East Hants, that I look at it as you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't expect our kids and our residents to swim in Colchester or skate in Brooklyn or Colchester or HRM, swim, whatever. You can't expect the residents who geographically are closer to those areas to be able to do that at, no penalty, and yet impose a penalty on residents that just geographically happen to live closer to our facilities. I've always looked at it as it all kind of comes out in the wash. We have folks who don't live in East Hants using some of our facilities, and we have folks who live in East Hants using facilities in other municipalities, and it's that way all around the province. Because political boundaries, that doesn't mean a lot when it comes to choosing where you're going to get your recreation. You're going to go to the closest, most convenient place. So I certainly understand where, you know, I understand the frustration, and I concur that, you know, we do everything we can do to encourage regular staffing and offer as many lessons as we can. But at this particular time, I can't support a prioritized registration system. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up, Councillor Tom Eisner.
Through you to staff, so this is federally funded. What percentage do the feds put into that building?
So the project was about 19 million, through you, Mr. Chair, to construct the facility. So it's about 5.8 million was the.
They put 5 million in, and then we did the rest.
Yeah, it's almost 30%.
30%. So I guess they don't really have a say what the rest of the residents in the areas can go or not go there. The other question is what your hours of operation there?
So the hours of operation right now for the facility, through you, Mr. Chair, is Monday to Friday we are 6 to 9. On Saturday we are 8 to 8, and Sunday we are 8 to 5 p.m.
Is there any chance of doing later hours to get the adult ones that want to use it? I'm thinking that you don't want kids going there 10 or 11 o'clock at night, but a lot of facilities are open later in this HRM.
Through you, Mr. Chair, our facility hours are in line with a lot of the facilities in HRM. There are some that are a bit later. Those typically have fitness centers that extend till 10. The pool usage at that time is generally low. Speaking from an aquatic programming registration point of view, from the purpose of this report, the peak times and demand for swim lessons are in that 4 to 7 time frame, Monday to Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday mornings, which we are, again, putting as many staff as we can, and just noting back to the table of staff that we have, just in comparison to some of those other facilities, we are much smaller and are teaching more children per staff unit than a lot of the other facilities.
Is there other problems in the other swimming institutions in the province that having staffing problems or time problems?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, lifeguarding in general is a shortage nationwide right now. The Life Saving Society of Canada has changed the age from 16 to 15 to try to reduce this. We were the first province to do that in Nova Scotia. It is a big challenge, I think, for every industry, but aquatics is suffering nationwide. Yeah.
Well, that's all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor Eisner.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one left to speak, I'll pass the chair over to, well, all right, I'll go to Councillor Norval Mitchell.
Just a quick question through the staff. What's your ratio of instructors to participants? You must have a limit how many you can have per instructor.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So each class size has a different ratio. And so for preschool levels up to about swimmer 3 is 1 to 5. As you get into those higher levels, you're able through the Life Saving Society to increase 1 to 10. So we typically go 1 to 4, and where we can add and offer extra assistance, we do increase up to 5 per class. I will note that there's kind of the law of diminishing returns there that I've seen at facilities. When you start to overcrowd some classes, you can get more customer service issues, especially with the rise of inclusive needs in classes. There's more attention to one-on-one support, which we've done recently through our Inclusion Swim program.
Do you have an ideal ratio that you'd like to maintain?
Ideal ratio is, again, within the guidelines of the Life Saving Society, of that 1 to 4, 1 to 5, where we can have the assistance. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all.
You're welcome, Councillor Mitchell. Seeing no one likes to speak, I'd like to turn the chair over to the warden. I have a few questions. First of all, I'd like to state that I can feel for the people that live in these towns that are paying taxes and who also live and rent here. But if they're being, they're not all actively in this program. I feel for that. I've heard everything that everybody said here, and everybody has got agreeable points. I guess my question would be, do we have an understanding, is these non-residents, are they mostly coming from bordering communities within 20-mile radius of our borders? Or are they coming from 50 miles or out? I guess was the kind of, do we have a feel for that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have an exact percentage. I mean, the numbers, for Enfield were very large, and to split those up requires a lot of calculation to figure out where that borderline is. So there's quite a few, I would say, from around the border, but also we are attracting populations from Fall River, Wellington, and those areas.
So where would their center be in Fall River to Wellington? Would that be toward the Sackville area?
Their closest, facility would either be us or within HRM would be Sackville Sports Stadium would be the closest for them.
Okay, if we were to consider some kind of jurisdictional thing, could it be considered that we, East Hants residents, and then with first, and then the bordering communities within a so-mile radius? Could that work?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I guess if council was interested in staff coming back with options for a priority model, that could be something that staff outline as a possibility. I would have to, with my team, go back to Perfect Mind to understand how we can create that either through the recreation software or if council wanted to see an in-person validation proof. But I think that would be leaning towards the alternative of staff coming back with a plan of some type of priority, and that could be outlined in the plan.
I get what I'm trying to get at. If people's traveling from 50 to 70 miles to bring their child or themselves here, compared to somebody that lives in Dutch Settlement that's only going to be 8 miles away, I mean, that's what the kind of thing that I was trying to get at, And I understand that our boundaries are not in line really with our total communities out there. Like in most of my area down the shore area, Truro would be your where to go for swimming, and also Brookfield for hockey. So I have a great sense of what everyone's talking about here, but I guess I just threw that out there to see if, because like I say, it would be a bitter pill to paying the taxes, and you couldn't get to it because somebody from that outside the municipality who's not paying taxes, I can see where they're coming from. So I see both sides of it.
Okay.
So anyway, that's all for me. All right, 3 up. Councillor Wayne Green is next.
I would move the recommended motion to maintain the status quo with registration as it is today.
Seconded by? Got moved by Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Musa. Up before the motion was created. Oh, well, nobody. All disappeared. So what is your wish?
Question.
All right, the question's been called and nobody's asked to further speak on this. We'll go to the vote. The vote of in is passed 9 votes to 2 with, where do we go, mimic? Oh, results. In the vote. With Councillor Sandra Garden Cole and myself voting aye. So the next issue would be item number, I think it's 40 on that, if you could bring that up. We're going to have that this afternoon during discussions. The manager will be here with regard to that. So by moving number 40 down, we are now adjournment of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee. Or do we? Okay. So I'd be just instructed. I need a. We gotta know where we're going. What are we doing?
We would save 25 minutes at the end of the day if we go to the camera.
Okay, I am not even gonna try to bite on this one. We're gonna let the warden explain to it, and we'll take your wishes from that. You got it?
Yeah. Yes, we only have about 15 minutes because we're scheduled to adjourn at 12:15. We do have two in-camera items which are slated on the policy council meeting later. While this is still committee, we could do the in-camera discussion part of at least one of those before we adjourn for lunch if council so wished, which would save us time at the end of the day. But that is, any motions or anything coming out of that would take place at the council meeting, so. So I just ask council, what's your wish? Do you wish to adjourn early, or do you wish to tackle the first in-camera discussion prior to adjournment?
Okay, what would you like? I'm here.
Yeah, we'd be finished by 11:45, we'd adjourn.
All those in favor for the first in-camera session? Contrary mind? Okay, so we're going to adjourn from Parks, Recreation, and Culture and move into in-camera session. I entertain a motion for adjournment of Parks, Recreation, and Culture. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Deputy Warden Perry. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary mind? Motion's carried.
And that would be you, Mike.
All right, just quickly calling back. We have to move, I do motion to move the camera. No. So we're moving back into Corporate and Residential Services Committee. I'll be looking for a motion to move into camera. Moved by Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All those in favor? Aye. We'll wait for the report for us to be in camera.
To discuss a land issue.
Oh, yes, we're going to discuss the land issue. our regular meeting of council following committee today. It's now reached a time to adjourn for lunch. There will be another nominated committee following this in a separate room. Is anybody looking for a motion to adjourn for lunch to return at 1:30? Moved by Councilor Rhino, seconded by Councilor Hebb. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.